In this segment of the inside scoop of creative financing, I'm going to be sharing how I get sellers calling me every single week, begging me to buy their house and totally okay with taking payments. The objective for finding sellers willing to do the bank for you is two main keys. If you're taking notes, write these down. Step one, find a motivated seller. Step two, ask the right questions. What do I mean by that? I mean that 90% of the market, probably, give or take, wants cash and wants it now. Finding the minority, the few in the market who are willing to take payments. Well, why would they do that? The answer is I don't know. There's a lot of reasons. I've bought houses on inheritances that needed updated. They was only going to be able to get, for example, $300,000 cash, and I was able to agree to pay them $400,000 on owner financing, even though the property maybe was only worth $450 and was dated. And so whatever the numbers are, where you are, there's these deals everywhere. And so as we go to find these deals and we start asking the right questions, the first step is finding sellers. How do we find sellers? The first way, and the least effective way, I might add, and I preface this with that because I have students who are running their entire business off of outbound calls. Go on Facebook Marketplace, Facebook groups, Zillow, Craigslist, and other house for sale by owner places next door, wherever you find houses for sale by owner. And I have people who are hiring a virtual assistant to do nothing but dial these for sale by owners and running an entire business off of that. I can't even begin to tell you how many houses I've bought in my own business that way and how many I've helped students buy all over the country with that technique right there. What's the challenge with that? You're talking to a whole lot of unmotivated sellers to get to the few who are willing to take payments. So another way that it happens is outbound calls, another form of outbound calls, to have a virtual assistant be a cold caller. You have students who are winning all over the US by simply having a virtual assistant to dial hundreds or even thousands of people on lists, inherited lists, divorce lists, and various other lists, and dialing them by the hundreds or even thousands. And again, it's talking to many to get to a few. Now, my favorite way is to get sellers calling me. How do we do that? There's Google ads and there's Facebook ads and there is postcard mailings to highly motivated lists and multiple other strategies that we use, I still use in my business today, that gets the phone ringing off the hook. I give them multiple ways to contact me. If they find me on Google and want to sell their house fast, they fill out a form. And the form gives the address and the asking price for the house and exactly what it is they want. I look at that form that they filled out and that gives me some insight to exactly where the seller's mind is. If it's a case where they are calling in, then of course we have that set up as well where we can take their calls. Interestingly enough, it varies. About 80% on Google decide to fill out the form and about 20% right now are deciding to call. And that, again, it varies. I had a point last year in our business where it was switched and the majority was calling off of the ads. Point is, it really doesn't matter if they're reaching out to us. That's the key. So finding these sellers is thinking through a motivated seller's eyes. Why would a seller take payments? Again, I don't know. I mentioned inheritance earlier. Bought from people who were getting a divorce. Perhaps there's a $300,000 house and they owe $275,000 on it. If they're going to list it with the realtor and sell it, then they're going to be out basically time and payments and get almost no money or maybe even have to bring a check to closing. And we offer debt relief in that case. And the conversation simply goes, if I buy your house and start covering your payments when you and I agree, are you willing to let me do that until I can pay it off in the future at an agreed time? And we get their answer. More on that later. So finding these sellers is key, and if we can get in the heads of motivated sellers, if we can find out what they're thinking, then we can find them. I've seen bandit signs work, I've seen business cards work, I've seen car magnets work, I've seen dozens of countless strategies, and write this down, keep it simple. I've seen people put together a long ad on wherever, talking about all sorts of challenges that they can help the seller solve. I keep it simple. What do I write? My ad says something like this: I buy houses cash, and a phone number. And the more simple the ad, the better. Now, You said, Andrew, you're talking about creative financing, and now you're saying our ad says we buy houses cash. The answer is we do. Let me ask you this. If you end up getting a phone call and somebody has a $2 million house and they want $100,000 cash, how many of you could come up with $100,000? If you don't have it, I assure you can find a partner real fast who does. And so the point is, you can pay cash, you will pay cash as long as the price is right. Now, immediately, regardless of where they come in from, if they come in from an ad that says sell your house fast, if they come in from an ad that says I buy houses cash, any of them, we're immediately going to start going down the creative finance road. Remember, with creative financing, we can pay more than all the cash investors out there. Because frankly, if we're getting terms, we can pay a little more than we could with cash. So let me ask you this. If you find a seller who can sell you a $400,000 house for $375,000 with nothing down and a payment of $1,000 a month, how many of those could you afford to buy? The answer? All of them. Why? Because you're going to be able to cash flow it, you're going to be able to have a little equity, and you're going to be able to have a huge profit on this thing. So again, I want to, throughout this training, help shift your thinking to this creative finance strategy. To find the sellers who need to sell rather than the sellers who just want to sell. Yes, everybody wants cash. I agree. And a lot of sellers are willing to take payments once they understand the benefits and why it's in their best interest to do so. Get good at asking questions. When you find the right sellers, asking the right questions is key. So besides finding the sellers through outbound calls by the hundreds or inbound calls by the dozens, there's many other ways to get these deals. Networking. Networking is key. I have consistently realtors and other investors in the area who bring me deals who perhaps the money that's needed for the deal, the cash, is just too large of an ask for the deal to support. And those deals, then they all in the community know that I buy houses and I pay a better price because I do it with creative financing. So guess who gets the deals? So in your market, it should be you. So be thinking about that. How do I find these sellers? Where are these sellers going? There's probably another 30 strategies I could cover of ways that you can find these motivated sellers. For lack of time today, we're not going to be able to get through all of them, nearly all of them. The objective is find sellers who need to sell rather than just want to sell. Pre-screen through the dozens or the hundreds to get to the minority who are willing to take payments. When you find these sellers and you quickly do deal 1 and 2 and 3, you begin to build a machine around this thing. Finding these sellers becomes simple. Finding these sellers becomes second nature. I literally almost never have a lack for sellers willing to take payments. Why? Because I always have marketing going on. I always have leads coming in. Anytime that there's ever been a lapse or a delay, I get to looking at the system, and I always find that somewhere the system has been broken. Either our ads have not been going out to get them calling us, or our VA has been down and not outbound calling, or some other various form of that. Remember, you're building a snowball. Once you find one seller and then 2 and then 3, and you begin turning this into a business, they don't keep their mouths shut. They begin to tell their friends, I found this guy and Andrew has paid me exactly what I wanted for my house, and he closed fast and he keeps his word. His way's a little different than the traditional cash out route. And he's a great guy. If you need to sell your house fast, call him. So that, again, can be you in your market. Become that person. The sellers begin finding you and everything changes. The beginning stages are always the hardest stages. So if you already have a successful real estate investing business going, congratulations. Add this to it and shoot for the moon. If you're brand new and looking to get started, I'm telling you, stay consistent. Begin asking the right questions, learning how to locate these prospects, learning how to locate these sellers, and getting them on the phone. And before long, 1 turns to 2, turns to 10. So keep growing, keep going, and never give up. To find these sellers, again, the key is either outbound calling by the hundreds or getting them calling you. So get good at finding those sellers. Figure out how you're going to get them coming to you and you going to them, and everything begins to change. So that segment is all about finding sellers willing to be the bank for you. And I'll see you on the next class.